I'm John Hinkle, Senior Pastor of First Presbyterian Church here in downtown Murfreesboro on the corner of College and Spring. This is your Saturday morning preview of Sunday morning's sermon. Well, it's the last Sunday of September and we're finishing up our series of sermons that have explored the theological concept and thus implication of love. And from the very start of this whole sermon series, I've told you that love is not easy. Love's a hard thing to do. It's hard enough to love people that we actually like. Try loving people that are unlovable. And one of the things that we have focused on is kind of the process of love for those within the church. We started out with John's epistle that says where we first love is within the church. We love those in the church. John's not talking about the love of a church building. As a matter of fact, you can't love a building because a building can't love you back. So John says we first love those within the church, and it's out of our love for those within the church that we are a witness to the world, the rest of the world, the love that Jesus has for us. Joyce picked up this theme when she talked about how the first step of loving those outside the church is to recognize who Jesus came to love. As Jesus said, when the Pharisees were getting on to him about eating with tax collectors and sinners, he said, listen, it's not the healthy who need a doctor. The righteous don't need saving because the righteous already think they're saved. It's those who are broken, those who are lost, those who are searching. They're the ones I came to love. And then last Sunday, we looked at the parable of the Good Samaritan, where after telling the parable of the Good Samaritan, Jesus said, who was more like a neighbor to the man in need? And of course, the teacher of law said the one who showed mercy on him. And I said that very important statement at the end of the sermon, that on the day of judgment, it would be better for us to be a Samaritan, a Muslim, a Hindu, to be a Sikh, to be a non-believer, to be a seeker, to be a lost, who has loved their brother, than to be a so-called, so-claimed Christian who's never loved at all. And that's actually where we're going to start our sermon this Sunday, back with that statement. And I'm not going to kind of ruin the beginning of my sermon with you, but I do want to kind of talk today about our sermon lesson, which comes from the book of Acts. It is that moment when Saul gets the authority from the Sanhedrin, remember the leaders of the temple, to go to the city of Damascus. Damascus kind of is the place where Christianity is blooming. And he's to go there, round up all the Christians, and bring them back for trial. But of course, it's on the road to Damascus that Paul has his encounter with the risen Lord. In a blinding light, Jesus comes to Saul and he says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And in that moment, Saul is blinded by the grace that he experiences. And he is helpless and alone on the side of the road, much like the man in the parable of the Good Samaritan. And at the same time, we're told that the risen Lord comes to a man in Damascus named Ananias. And he says to Ananias, Ananias, I've got a huge ask. But I need you to bring Saul into your home, and I need you to take care of him. And of course, what's Ananias' response? It goes, Saul, you mean the dude who was coming to Damascus to round me up and round my family up and round other Christians up in order to put me on trial? And who knows, have the same fate as Stephen, who was stoned outside the temple? That guy? That's what you want me to do, Jesus? And Jesus says, yes. Because Saul is the key to this all. What I am doing. But I can't do it, Ananias, without you. And the scripture says that Saul was brought into Ananias' home, and Ananias called him brother. And when he did so, the scales fell from Saul's eyes and he could see. He could see Ananias, but more importantly, he could see the love that Ananias had and has for Saul. You can't do that unless you live out what Jesus commanded. Love God, love neighbor. That's the only way that happens. So that's going to be our focus. I'm kind of excited about this sermon and the way this sermon series has gone. And I look forward to being with you and worshiping with you. Shout out to Glenn Emery, Will Fraley, anyone else who loves Saturday morning preview of Sunday morning sermon, but especially a shout out to the one and only Hayden Still. Love you, Hayden. Y'all take care. We'll see you soon.